Now, the last thing I expected this chapter was for Natsu to have PTSD over the events, obviously, of the Tartaros arc and what was going on with, the comparison of, at least for him, seeing Ignia and Selene fight, reminding him of Ignio and Acnologia. I did not see that being an aspect of this fight at all. I did not go into this thinking that we were going to be, I guess, directing it more of a not too important thing. I'm kind of alright with that because really when you look at it, like Natsu hasn't had a lot of the focus you'd expect for the main character in a while because in the status of it being bi-weekly and because of the nature of Ellentir, we didn't have a lot of focus on him, and we had a little bit of stuff. Obviously in chapter 100 we got the fight with him and Suzaku, but like that wasn't like a full fight. That was more of like a skirmish, and it was interrupted by Ignia and put us towards like the current events where him and Suzaku were teamed up. But having a moment now where one, we're seeing a really important, I think, aspect to his character. Well, at least what I would consider to be, a very important new aspect to his character, because we've we've been given stuff obviously with the fallout and whatnot of Acnologia and obviously what he's done and what Natsu has lost because of it. But it was one of those things, like we saw trauma, we saw stuff that clearly affected him. Obviously, he was very, very down and wasn't just kind of like bouncing right back to his feet. It almost looked like he was broken at one point. And when we see Gildart later, during the chapter 417, they had that moment where you can tell that he's talking about something very, very like deep cutting into his core, something that makes him very troubled and emotional. And there are a few things that do that to Natsu, and the thing that was the most recent that is obvious would be what happened with Ignio. So seeing this here was extremely, extremely unexpected. I had absolutely no stocks in the idea of Natsu having like trauma, that being one of the biggest focuses of the chapter. Like him having trauma is like I mean it's like he's obviously gonna have a level of trauma from seeing his dad die, but to the extent where we're at now, no, I didn't think he was gonna have PTSD where he was gonna be seeing two dragons fight and he was just gonna be like lost in flashbacks of like seeing the events of what happened that day. Like it was pretty crazy. Like it was not, again, something I did not expect. It's not something that I foresaw to go down here with with these events, with Suzaku just kind of like being there confused of like what's going on, what's going on here with you guys. I imagine for him it'd be pretty alarming, but for Natsu, it's again it's something that now tags a whole new extra thing to his character, because I mean now we might get another E&D scene. We might get Natsu going into that just uncontrolled rage, and I'm here for it. Like I thought this was going to be more focused for a bit on Selene versus Ignia, but it seems more like Mishima was setting it up for more of a first round fight between Natsu and Ignia, and seeing Natsu like actually get like a full set of his powers going about. Well, there's the fact that Ignia like might be stronger than the other Dragon Gods. That's He's the one on the table that, though we don't have a direct confirmation, he's the most likely, at least from what we've been given, because he's the only one that's been training. He's the only one that seems to be actively trying to become more powerful, and the only one that was seeking long-standing revenge. Alderaan went back to try and fight Acnologia, but it's like he like he hid for like 100 years. I mean, maybe not exactly hid, but it's like I really doubt somebody of his arrogance, of his stature, was unaware of Acnologia 100 plus years into his genocidal campaign. And when you look at that and you think like, well, one, he probably would have had the mindset to go after him, and two, we know that he got messed up, and I don't think that he's a character that would have otherwise really kind of like strayed away from, in his mind, going to kill a human that was being a big problem to these dragons. So when we see Ignia right now, I think Ignia's got a lot of badass stocks. I figured that with him and Selene, because I really wanted to see their just general move set. I'm not against what happened because of the fact. Well, two things I'll say real quick. One is I figured that because of the fact these are two characters that are supposed to be on level with each other, are aware of that, and are entering this fight serious and wanting to kill each other, that the second one of them found an opening, it could have been the end. Like, it could have easily just been what ends the fight. Once one of them just saw the sharpest and most lean opportunity to go and attack the other and end them, I think that makes perfect sense of why Ignia would take that opportunity. And it also shows the gap between him and Ignia, because there is some conversation in the chapter, like comparison to Ignia and Ignia, but there's a lot there very clearly that Ignia is just one a cut above stronger, but also on the fact that he doesn't have that more kind of human side to him, the like not compassion but more just kind of non-bloodthirsty, like more tame, not tame, but you know what I mean, way more docile, way more kind of like noble. When you go back and look at the fight during Tartaros, the point when Face was going off and Acnologia slams him to the ground and Ignil just kind of bodies right into him and stands on him and, you know, does this whole thing. If he wanted to, rather if he just didn't take the opportunity, because obviously he wanted to kill Acnologia, but if he just took the opportunity there instead of like done the whole thing about like talking to them and trying to have a conversation with Natsu really briefly, thinking Acnologia was defeated, yeah, that's the obvious thing, like he thought he was done. He should have just taken that opportunity there to finish the job. And that's a big thing between the two of them, because Ignia just seems to be going for the kill. He's like knows that one, the second like Selene had the opportunity, she would have tried to kill him. So why would he not do the same thing? And on top of that, he knows his dad died because he didn't take an opportunity like that. He didn't take that opening to eradicate his foe. So when we look at Ignia and you look here, it's one of those things. It's like obviously it's like more badass, but at the same time it's like he's obviously crazy about it. But with him, he's like going about this like a complete madman for one. And I will say that he was very fun in this chapter. He was a lot of fun to read, and he was a lot of fun just to see him being a maniac, just this massive fire dragon. I'm so curious of what's going on with like his slight redesign, because like his design got altered a little bit. But the thing about it that I feel like Ueda or Mishima, one of them had to. It was either Mishima wanted to do it or Ueda's like, I need to declutter this. They took a good piece of the stuff off him. Like, they didn't completely reduce all aspects to his design, but definitely they pulled back on a little bit. I mean, for instance, he doesn't have the big horn. He doesn't have that big weird crystalline horn that he used to have. And he also doesn't have his Charizard tail anymore. Like, we're getting a better view of him. He doesn't have his cool Charizard tail that he had before. Like the big flaming end. Like, it seems to have been switched more for like a cool fiery mane, which I mean that's really cool too. I think he looks badass. Him using an ability this chapter that looked like almost exactly like Eternal Flare was such a strange thing. Like, it was cool, but like the whole time I'm just wondering, like, until we got it, it's like, did he use Eternal Flare? Why? What's the purpose? Confirm fire spell, not time spell? I don't know. Regardless, like, this was not a dialogue heavy chapter. Like, I was hoping for a little bit more lore. Like, lore was my biggest thing. I really wanted some lore, maybe some like crazy feats or something. I'm fine with like it being more of just kind of like an opening battle, because as long as Selene doesn't die, I don't really mind this, because again, one of them finding an opening to take out the other, I think makes perfect sense. Why would Ignia not want to? Ignia is clearly like super bloodthirsty and ruthless. So during a conversation where Selene might not be paying full attention or might be, you know, distracted or something, he's gonna take that opportunity. Why would he not? Like, Selene may be a little bit more courteous of that, but Ignia clearly is not for that. Clearly is not for that kind of thing. Also, I really like the start of the chapter. It's like you have that cool kind of like clash off. But I was gonna say, before I get to that, it's like Ignia, he just looks a lot cleaner with some of those things off. I kind of wish they kept the cool crystal horn though. I liked the crystal horn. I always thought that was neat, just because it made me wonder like why. It was cool looking, but I'm just like, what was the point of the crystal horn? It matches nothing really with his design. It was just kind of something extra. So I was like, is there something specific about it? Is there like anything he's gonna do? Is he gonna headbutt somebody with like a sick flaming spear? Because I was like, well, maybe it'll heat up and it'll become like such a hot like thing of crystal that like it'll just incinerate everything it touches without a trace or something, like a thermal sword. But Natsu at the start is like talking to Suzaku, and Suzaku's like, what are we gonna do? Like, what's the plan here? Like, these two are about to clash. What are we doing here in this one? What's your plan, Natsu? Natsu's just like, what do you mean? Like, we're gonna join in, we're gonna go fight. Bad idea. Bad idea. Like these guys are obviously like a large step above the others, a very large step above anything that they've faced, like one on one. And on top of that, Ignia and Selene are a lot more angry in this scenario, so it's not going to be a spot where they're going to be more playful and more fun. So Selene, so like for instance, Selene, like we know that Selene can one shot somebody stronger than Suzaku, but it's like we don't know exactly if she's gonna have that same aggression and rage towards like Natsu and Suzaku in this scenario. Obviously, like this is not a normal thing for that because like, you might just get caught in an attack and get blasted anyway, and it's not gonna matter at that point whether she's angry at you or not if you just get caught in crossfire between these two monsters. She's having like a nice moment, like Selene is just like saying like a fight between us, like neither one of us is gonna leave just fine, and Ignia's just like, okay, bet. I thought that was like Ignia is hilarious. I actually like how like Ignia's funny badass in like such a cool way. One thing I will say is like, I mean, yeah, he definitely is like at the end of the chapter was in a way better state, but he was absolutely damaged, so he is gonna leave this match not unscathed. He can't say he left it unscathed. He took somewhat of damage from Selene. They have a sick roar clash, and I love that. I love seeing that in general. That was just like that's just one of those baseline things that like it's just required. It's needed to see like a clash between dragon roars. It's one of the most core dragon and dragon slayer things in the series, and everybody loves seeing it. It's just badass looking. Then massive explosion destroying the area. We get up the fact brought up by Suzaku that even he couldn't even damage the labyrinth. We know that the labyrinth was way more durable than what he and Natsu were putting out at that point in time. Granted, that's because it is made of Dogromag. Dogromag, as far as we know, is that bar. He is the bar to enter Dragon God level. And so that just shows, like, though Natsu and Suzaku are stronger than human form Selene is not Dragon God level. Like, it's her actual Dragon God self once she goes into her dragon form. Whereas the weaker version, though still powerful, is not nearly as much of a threat, and it's not just isn't nearly packing the same level of danger to do this much damage and stuff to the whole thing, to the whole labyrinth. I wonder like what kind of crazy thing you would get from that, because like the labyrinth was stronger than anything Natsu and Suzaku could really do. But it's like, look at all the air, you like really see how much area that Ignia just completely demolished when he was like destroying the area. Same thing with Selene. Like you see them like incinerating and completely crushing and just blasting away the walls of the labyrinth like they're just regular rock. When we know that like if they're strong enough that like people Natsu and Suzaku couldn't even do anything about it. Like, but Ignia's using his attack. It looks pretty cool. It looks like Eternal Flare, but I guess it's not a name spell. He's just doing a move. Him and Selene are just having regular melee attacks. She's doing cool stuff like smacking them with her tails. Actually, let me see real quick. I've been wanting to look at Selene's tails just because I want to know how many she has. I think she only has 7. I wonder if she's gonna get more, because I know 9 is the maximum for kitsunes, like the demon foxes, and that's what her whole setup is at least based off of. Like she's obviously in like theme to one of them. So her right now, I don't know, I guess it'd be more room for her to get new tails, but she's just kind of like smashing at Ignia. He's like getting crushed into the ground, and that's when Natsu starts having PTSD and starts having worry back to the stuff with Ignia, which again is really intriguing, really interesting to me that Mishima did this. Like I figured that we would have something maybe of like a reminder maybe, but nothing like this. Nothing where it was going to be like outright Natsu having PTSD. Like that was, I don't think that was in anybody's cards. Like absolute emotional damage to this extent. Because it's like after the arc with Tartaros, maybe we would see something like that. But as of right now, I was like, well, I think he's mostly been able to handle it. It's been 2+ years since then. But it's like now he's like seeing 2 big dragons clash, one of them looking like his dad, and he's just freaking out. Like he's not having a good time, and it's just causing him so much emotional distress. And then like Selene is having a cool part. She's like, those are the flames of the son of Ignia, the fire dragon king, and she's like, yeah, whatever. It does like the moonlight palm. She just busting out attacks she used against Suzaku. Obviously, these are much more powerful, bigger leagues of things. And even Suzaku is making commentary on it. He's like, this is a completely different tier than what she was doing. I wonder what that's like, though. For like, I get for when it comes to characters like doing a direct like crazy feat. Like when you compare like her Moonlight Palm versus the old one, it doesn't look more powerful. Like visually, you just have to know obviously she's knocking back Ignia and causing damage for Ignia, like he's spitting up some blood. So that's obviously much more powerful if Moonlight Palm, a much weaker version, wasn't able to defeat someone like Suzaku, but this version was able to draw blood out of dragon form Ignia, so much more powerful. But for the character seeing it, I wonder what it feels like. Like, would it just be like a more powerful shockwave? Is there like something you can just tell from the force of the attack? I guess like the sturdiness of Ignia, he would know that none of his attacks are going to budge him. So like an attack that's actually able to do that to him is way more powerful than anything that he can do. And again, Ignia is just talking shit. He's like, "Don't make me laugh. Like, don't even think about comparing me to Ignia's level." Like he's just revving up his heat, and Selene just catches fire. Like her body just immediately ignites and starts burning, and he's laughing. He thinks it's absolutely hilarious. He's just having a great time, like making fun of her for the fact that she's the one that cozied up to the humans, and look where she's at now. Like this is the end of Selene. Like she's just pretty much gonna be ash and nothing. And then we get like Selene disappearing, going into a portal, like going off into some water, and like cleaning, pretty much just washing out the fire, putting out the fires. I wonder if it's just regular water. Like how would that work? Because we know that Ignia's fire can just like straight, like, he says burn water, but evaporate water just from being around it. So like maybe it's like a special lake. I was like special specific, and somehow like I try to say the words at the same time. But something more specific to Selene. Maybe that's Selene's place of hiding. Like that. Maybe that's like a den we'll see or something for like her own personal stuff. Who knows? I mean, that's one of the things I think we're gonna have to wait to see like another chapter or two, because we're gonna have to definitely see something with Selene. She might live. I mean, like I assume she's gonna live. I would be really disappointed if she died. We were brought into the arc with the whole thing from Eleftheria, the fact that dragon bodies are different to the point where they can grow organs to replace ones that were lost. So whatever damage Selene has on her insides, as long as her body is able to recover in time, it should be able to just create new organs if any were like permanently destroyed. Like if we're gonna see like a huge hole and she's just dead, I'm gonna be so sad. I'm gonna be so sad. I'd be like, the only way Mishima would be able to make it up for me is like if he just gives us like the most wild fight in the whole series, like the craziest thing, and it ends in like Natsu still losing or a draw, or it's just an insane amount of fight. And then obviously like I'd want more personal stuff from Ignia, because like if Mishima threw away Selene for whatever reason, the only like we would need to have some form of mega compensation, like obviously improving Ignia's characters. Factually, even though I really like Selene, Ignia's a more important character to the lore. He's much more important to have the focus and have more going on with him, because obviously his connections to Natsu and Ignia, like that just makes sense. I don't think anybody would really deny that. But following that, you have Selene like coming into her moonlight butterflies and just doing like this massive attack, scorching into like the ground, smashing it up, sending the butterflies out. I really wish we saw like just some like crazy visuals, like even if it's not like something insane, like you see her hand come up and then you just see like maybe the moon, like imagine like the night sky, and then like you see her hand raised and bam, the moon's there, not like in her hand but like behind it, and then she just kind of comes down on him and does an attack or something like that. It is badass looking. It's just like this massive beam. There's this giant moon ray beam that's like smashing into Ignia, and Ignia is taking damage. Like he's not just shrugging it off. He's like actually like burnt, like he's actually taking damage, a little bit rattled. And Selene is doing her thing. Like after that, like doing like, oh, your greatest weakness is your arrogance. You don't think anybody's gonna be able to beat you. And again, I like Ignia's energy. I really like the way he talks and the way he is in these fights. He seems to just be having so much maniacally psycho fun. And he's just like, I believe it because it's true. So let me show you. And he just starts coming in, get ready to attack. And that's when Natsu has like a huge like snap point where he's just yelling at them to stop. And it does get him to stop momentarily, and he's just like breathing heavy, clearly like he's just rattled. This is clearly like just messed with his head and really brought up some emotions and memories that he didn't need here, and definitely didn't want. But that's when like you have a good moment from Selene, and she's like from like just straight logic. Like she's just like, why? Like regardless of which one of your enemies is going to be gone. So like even if I lose, it's good for you. If he loses, good for you. And I get that. But obviously Selene doesn't know the further context of like Natsu and obviously like the damage that like he went through. Cuz I imagine she knows the general information of like what went down and stuff, but not like the full scale kind of like vision of like what was going on. I have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure Selene already knows that Ignia is dead. The only way that like you would be able to do anything with that elsewise is like if Selene didn't know, and it's like we have a whole thing of like Selene's unaware of like specific dragons that were dead or something, which I don't know. I feel like would be kind of strange, but you have a really nice moment. It's both sad and wholesome. Where Natsu is thinking back to those final moments of the Tartaros arc in absolute misery, and Ignius like, really? Okay. Oh, he got it. He understood. He's like, you know, you're pretty much were thinking of when the old man died, right? When he ended up getting defeated. Well, yeah, I know. Acnologia really did a number on him. He really did some bad stuff to the old fella. But he's like, there is a really important and interesting part here, though. I feel like this is really important. He's saying that, you know, my old man was the strongest dragon. Very intriguing. Very interesting wording. Because does that mean at the time of Ignia was the strongest dragon around? Like, was he the most powerful dragon known to man? And you would be able to not count Acnologia though, like if you were Ignia, because Acnologia wasn't a real dragon. He was a dragon slayer that turned into a dragon. Whereas with Ignia, obviously he is a natural born dragon. So if Ignia has some of that pride for his father, but at the same time that remorse and resentment, the fact that, you know, he even says that it's part of it, you know, his fault because, and, you know, Acnologia had a chance. Like Acnologia had an opportunity to finish off, or sorry, Ignia had rather a chance. Like Igniel, double fix. Igniel had a chance to finish off Acnologia, but he took time to kind of like start to try to address things with Natsu because he thought Ignia I'm messing with words. He thought Acnologia was done. He thought he was just kind of done, and that was going to be the end of that. Like I think he definitely thought he was defeated, not just because a face was going off. And then once he got back up, obviously the more anger came out and more damage and destruction pretty much followed up from that. So when you see that and you see like where Igni's at, and he's just like, I don't mess around like that. Opens his mouth and just blasts Selene, just fire breaths her right through the chest. Like she is just like she's not looking good. But the fact that she can survive, I assume she's gonna survive. It would be very strange if Mishima killed her off. Because one, he seems to like her. She got like what, fourth most popular in the last poll, like in her first ever poll, like she made fourth. And I don't know, I think she's just been a fun character and has a lot to the lore and a lot of things she could do. Like Mishima can pretty much move any character he wants into current events with Selene. He can do a lot of things freely with the ability to skip over steps with Selene. Nobody can really stop her except what Viernes and Ignia. She can literally just teleport anybody she wants to right into plot. Sting, Rogue, Gildarts, Shalal, freaking whoever. Grab them, teleport them here because she feels like it. Bam. But now she's obviously gonna have to spend some time recovering. She got hit in that open chest area and is definitely looking rough. But we know, as I said, that the fact that from LF Seria, we know that dragons' bodies can grow new organs to make up for ones that aren't functioning properly or just outright destroyed. And at that point, Natsu is just enraged, yelling out Ignia like with the top of his lungs. And this is where I think next chapter we're gonna be getting some E&D. I think we're gonna be getting some of Natsu's rage form to see that berserk psycho demon of flames just go at Ignia. And I think that will be so much fun to see. If we can get essentially Ignia with his already set personality where he's just loving it against Natsu in this state, like that to me just makes me immediately think of a fight like Kenpachi versus Vasto Lordi Ichigo. Like that's kind of like the verse equivalent, and that just gets me super hyped. Like that is so cool in concept. It's obviously a different series and different characters, but it's like it's a similar style and setup. It's like they have to do those same vibes, like this kind of battle, and I'm for it. I want to see it. I'm really hoping though that if we get to it, there's a very clear outcome at the end. Like I don't want it the fight to end as kind of like cliffhanger as this when it ends, or like the follow up and fallout to be kind of like it. Like say real quick, these are like the three best options for me. Natsu loses and Ignia wins. Natsu has to get stronger, take a better spot, and it's like maybe one of those times where he's just kind of disappointed, but he knows that like he knows Natsu's at his full power, but he's happy that he knows that that level of power is in there and that fight can happen. Like he's just like, all I gotta do is get you stronger and awaken this again, and we're there and perfect. Like that. That is scenario one. Scenario two is some form of draw where because of events, maybe Natsu comes out of his form right in time or is stopped by Lucy again. And Ignia is like also unable to fight and continue onward. And you just kind of have that moment where it's like a locked eyes and like the tension is crazy. And Ignia kind of just has to leave. Or maybe he's just like, he has to figure out a plan to go from there on because he would know about E&D and stuff and like know that level of danger that he can draw out, that level of power and fire that he knows is in there. And the last one would be like, if Ignia loses, because I want to put this on the table, the idea of Ignia losing to this version of Natsu, this this boosted up, enraged form of his. My only thing would be, if Ignia lost to him somehow, that we would have to get like a scene where it's like Ignia afterwards is like happy about it, because then he would be like, all right, I'm gonna go train, I'm gonna get stronger, I'm gonna get at this guy again. And then it'd be like, we get through maybe Selene as a full focused arc where she is the main outright antagonist, where it's not stuff with not directly with Diablos, or unless it's like we want to kind of like set them up to where it's like a more classical style where we have to get through the fights and then climb the way to the top of whatever scenario to fight the big boss, and Selene's children as well. I mean, that's one of the big things. I guess Diablos and Fairy Tail versus Selene and her children would be like the most optimal fight in that regard. But if Ignia like kind of took it and then progressed from there, like he doesn't care that he lost, he's just like, fuck yeah, now I know it's there, I'm gonna get a little stronger, I'm going back, and I know how to get like the final fight in. I think the best one would be like Ignia winning. I think that's like the best scenario because it would be the most interesting, like to put Natsu in that state where Natsu like has like this crazy battle. And we have like the fire that he's had before, like with Merzphobia and with Zareth, where it's starting to burn his body. But it's like maybe Natsu is like, he just doesn't care or notice. Like he's just whatever. And he's just continuously fights regardless of the continuous damage that is now like is beginning to stack onto his being and starting to really ravage like his body. I think that would be like one of the perfect kind of outs for this fight. That would be amazing. I would love if we get something like that. Because with that we would pretty much get like such a great setup for another like big fight. We had the introduction, we get a example of their fight. Obviously Natsu's not fighting it like his normal strength, but it's obviously his untapped potential and strength that we haven't had him fully grasp yet. And then he takes us like a strong L, even though he got like a power up. And then we have like the full fight later. Maybe like they get rescued. Like maybe we could have something like I know Selene becoming an ally would be really weird, like if she actually wanted to be an ally. But I can see like Selene has enough room for redemption. Selene is dangerous, but like she's not at a point with her actions and her activities where she can't turn her life around and be like more on like a more positive side. If Mishima wants to do that, like, and maybe like have some form of like team up between them and Diablos, and then like maybe have Selene train people, that would be pretty hype. I think that would be a super cool way to kind of turn things around into a new direction rather. But for now we got 12 days. It's like a little under 12 days, like 11 and a half days until we get back to this fight and we see what's going to go on with Natsu. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to be so excited once those chapters come out, like those pages rather of that chapter, to turn the page and see if that shadow is over his eyes and those claws start coming out, and just that one glaring dead eye where he is just honed in on a target he needs to burn out of existence. So that's going to be just fantastic. I can't wait. I don't really know what Machine would do otherwise if he's just having Selene get bodied and to get Natsu's reaction out of this, because it's like, other than what's the point otherwise if it's not to draw out that primal emotion out of Natsu? Because we've seen it not just from him getting boosted, like in his fight with Mercephobia, where it's like a breakthrough to his powers to where he can't control himself. We've seen the initial one back in Alvarez, that kind of like moment where his mind and his emotions just have that shattered warp instance, like where he just sees red and literally like his arms like literally coats up in red fucking badass demonic arms, claws, and he's ready just to rip people apart. I guess not really, he's ready to slash people into ash, because I was like trying to think of it as like this more monstrous way about it, but it's like, no, he just wants to burn and reduce things to nothing, and I can't wait. Can't wait. Anyway, other than that, comment below. Thumbs up the video. Before the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. But that, appreciate you already subscribe. Thank you all for listening. Bye.